Hi there, Cheryl here. Today is an extremely special day. We are here with Shelmina Abji, who is the author of the best-selling book, Show Your Worth. And we are going to be having a live book talk today. And so I am so excited for this. We also have a funny story to share with you about how we met the first time. And Shelmina, thank you so much for your time. And I can't wait for you to share some of your gold nuggets of wisdom with us today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So before we jump into sharing some of your 8 intentional strategies, I would love to know, what either inspired you to greatness, earlier in your life, or what maybe was difficult and made you really want to overcome it. So in other words, how did you get to this point, and what was it like for you early in your life?
Wow. There were so many small steps that led me to where I am. Really, the first time I intentionally did something was when I was in third grade, getting all failing grades. And I upset my mom because of my grades. And that was not what I wanted to do. So when she saw my report card and cried because she worked so hard to raise us, and said that, I worked so hard to raise you and you got all failing grades. And really, Cheryl, the third grade Shelmina had no idea why she was really going to school. There were no expectations per se. And I looked at my mom and I said, why didn't you tell me you wanted me to pass? And really, that is when I started shifting my attention. The chapter on intentional attention is perhaps what got me going. When I shifted my attention from going to school to just show up and have a good time, I went to school to get good grades. And really, then that started the domino effect. I went from being the 27th ranked student in the class to third. And that's what made me realize that if I shift my focus and if I study, I can change the outcome. And after that, it was always about being first or second in the class because I knew I had the capability. And then when I got into high school, getting those good grades got me to think that I could obtain a college degree. No one in my family had a college degree. There was no education past 10th grade in my hometown. We had no money, but I dreamed bigger. And I thought, because I'm getting good grades, I could go to college. And if I got a degree, I would lift myself and my family out of poverty. So that's what drove me. I wanted to break that cycle of poverty. I wanted to obtain a college degree, even though I had no idea how, had no means to pay for it. It was something I figured out one step at a time.
And that is such an amazing story. And I think that can resonate with people on so many different levels. So for anyone listening, thinking about, what cycle, excuse me, do you want to break? And then also, or what is something where you could dream bigger, something that's in your heart, your gut, and you're not really sure how you're going to pull it off, and just do kind of what Shelmina said and just take it one step at a time. I think that is really a priceless story and advice. And so then what were your next steps like? So you get into college. I've cheated, of course, because I've read your book, so I know your story. But what
Yeah.
what happens, and how did you start your ascension up to being, higher in the ranks of IBM?
Yeah. So my first degree, Cheryl, was in mathematics from India. And really, the reason I picked India was it was the least expensive way to obtain a college degree. And because I never asked the why, and I didn't really know that a degree in mathematics at that time would not really pay me enough to lift my family out of poverty, I was just going with what made sense at the time. However, after I got my degree in mathematics, I quickly realized that in Tanzania, it was not going to lift me out of poverty. And I read a magazine in 1981. That magazine basically said that if you're good at math, you could learn how to program computers by getting a degree in computer science. And those were high paying jobs. And at that time, United States was one of the few countries that offered a degree in computer science. India did not. This is 1981 I'm talking about. And so I came to the United States and I got a degree in computer science, and that became my passport out of poverty. Now, it wasn't a straight line, as my book will share with you. I was on a student visa. And so most companies would not even consider interviewing me because I didn't have the right visa status. There was just one company in St. Paul, Minnesota, who interviewed me and hired me. And Cheryl, when they paid me $27,000 a year, I was ecstatic. That was more money than my parents could make in 10 years. And I had a spring in my step. I poured my heart and soul into my work. I was so grateful for the opportunity to be able to earn in US dollars. But then something happened. What happened is I started noticing at work that there was no one that looked like me in the entire company of 2,000 people. There was no one who spoke like me with an accent. Everyone had more experience. Obviously, I was just starting out. Everyone had advanced degrees. Some had masters, some had PhDs. Some even, I mean, most of them went to Ivy League colleges, and they came from better socioeconomic backgrounds. They wore better clothes. And I started wondering, what value am I going to contribute? What would I know that they don't already know? And here's the kicker, is that I was on a 1-year visa. And if I didn't figure out a way to contribute unique value, not just value that anyone else could contribute, but unique value, then they would not go through the expense of extending my visa. And my dream of lifting myself and my family out of poverty would be very short lived. So now I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. I'm underestimating my capabilities, so I'm afraid to speak up. But I also know that if I don't contribute unique value, then I'd have to go back. And so that became a forcing function, if you will. I had to overcome my fear of speaking up. I had to find my voice. I had to learn to communicate and state my ideas in a way that would be heard. I had to learn how to create unique value so they would extend my visa. And so these were all steps on my success journey. And when that company shut down and I was laid off because the company ran out of money, they were a technology startup company, and all 2,000 of us were let go on one day. It was 3.5 years after I started working there. That's when I joined IBM. And that's when my real acceleration of career success started. And Cheryl, I learned from every trial, every tribulation, and frankly, every triumph, because every experience teaches us something. And every time I learned something new, I started applying that to my career until I had a blueprint of how I was going to become successful. And that is how I rose up to become one of the highest ranking women of color at IBM. And Cheryl, I did this while I was a single mom. My kids were 2 and 4 while I was going up the corporate ladder. And so all these adversities actually made me who I have become. It helped me make decisions that enabled me to continue moving forward.
So that's so amazing. And I want to highlight a couple of things that you said. I mean, there were so many, but one in particular is that understanding. You said that you had to really believe that you had something that was unique to you and that your voice deserves to be heard. And I think that's a message that really needs to sink in with female leaders and emerging leaders, because sometimes we have fear, we have doubt, we kind of shrink down when we might, we don't want to speak up. And so understanding that even if we're less experienced
Yeah.
or we're trying something new, that we do have value to add.
Indeed. And that's why I have an entire chapter on intentional value creation. And because myself and so many other women I work with, we have a tendency to undermine our own capabilities.
Mhm.
We have a tendency to underestimate our worth. And that's why the title of the book is Show Your Worth. Each one of us has value we can contribute. Each one of us is worthy. Each one of us can make our organization successful. And we need to figure out how to do that. And that's why my book is so focused on the how to's. Because you see, Cheryl, when I used to speak to women and mentor women, they would come to me and they would say, we know what needs to be done, but we don't know how to. So I was very intentional in the way I've structured my book is to teach women how to. And the reason I can teach women how to is because I had to learn it myself.
So that is so great. And one question, that I have to ask, being a high performance and mental toughness coach, is that all of these things you're talking about, it's not easy, right? And so what has been the mindset that's allowed you, let me roll back a little. Success is never a straight line from A to B. It's usually a circuitous route. Like sometimes, people get let go, especially now. You had such a great post on LinkedIn for some of the folks that are part of this, recent things that are happening with Meta or Facebook and Twitter and all of that. I really love that post. And so is there something, that happened during your career when things went a little sideways, didn't go quite as you had planned? What is the mindset that you had to lean on that kind of became part of your personal mission statement?
Yeah, that LinkedIn post that you're talking about, it's received over 46,000 impressions, and I'm so grateful to be able to share my perspective because when I was laid off, I was devastated, and so life's gonna throw curveballs at us. And you're right, success is never easy. Frankly, if it were easy, we wouldn't feel the achievement. Anything worth achieving has to be difficult. We have to overcome obstacles and challenges. And when we achieve something after we have given it our best shot and after we have fallen and dust ourselves and we get up and we go at it again, it means so much more to us. So if success is easy, frankly, you're not pushing your boundaries.
Mhm.
So first of all, know that success is going to be difficult, but also know that you are up to that challenge. Also know that you have it in you. These are the choices you are going to make when a situation gets tough. Are you going to get tougher or are you going to give up? This is a personal choice you're going to make because you see, life and situations are going to be what they're going to be. But your reaction, or even better yet, your response to the situation is what's going to determine your success.
100%. And so it sounds like, and it's something that I talk about as well, that we have more control than we might think. And we have important decisions to make how we move forward from what is.
Yeah. And our control or our power is how I like to call it, lies in our responses.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I have coined this term called the power quotient, which has been the underlying and the cornerstone of my success. And your power quotient, I want every listener to understand, just like you have IQ, Just like you have EQ, you also have PQ. And your power quotient lies in your ability to intentionally pick a response. And Cheryl, this becomes very important when the stimulus is negative. Whether that is an internal stimulus like your own voice of fear, or an external stimulus like the pandemic,
Mhm,
or the microaggressions at work,
mhm.
or the negative stereotypes you have to deal with, or conscious and unconscious biases that is prevalent in our workplace culture. When you get a negative stimulus, stop and scan your mental chatter, because your mental chatter will want to react negatively. It's just how we are wired. But our control is in stopping, or our power is in stopping, scanning your mental chatter, and then shifting your mental chatter. This is your mental chatter. You get to decide how much power you give to your mental chatter. You shift your mental chatter, and if it's a stimulus of fear, you actually encourage your voice of courage, and then you respond with courage. Fear doesn't go away, but you choose, intentionally choose to respond with courage. And when you pick your responses intentionally, you are exercising your power quotient. This is when you never give your power away. You are powerful at all times because you know that you will not get rattled by anything that comes at you. You will intentionally pick your response no matter what the stimulus is.
That's such an important topic that you brought up. And in the world that, I'm in working 2 years with Olympians and world class athletes, it's the same frame of mind. How do you recover from, if you might get elbowed in the 400 meters or something? How do you respond, in the point of adversity? And so I think your power quotient is so important, and keeps in that, while honoring the emotion is important too, because what I've
Yes.
learned, emotions don't get suppressed or go away. They must be
Yes.
faced. You must look at them and acknowledge them.
Yes.
But then deciding, and one thing that when you said the word decide, or it reminded me about something that one of my mentors told me, and he said the word decide, it actually phonetically means death of. So I think of it as death of any other option. So if something of detriment happens, it's like, what do I decide? I decide I'm going to be successful. I decide I'm going to get the promotion. And so it just means that there's a fork in the road. This is where I'm going. It's almost as if it's already happened. So I
I
love
like
that you
that.
brought
I
that up.
like that. It so makes sense. And this about emotions in this day and age of all this mental health awareness and everything, I really want to reiterate that yes, we have all emotions and that they can coexist. I'm not a psychologist. This is not my area of expertise, but just based on my experience, my fear and my courage have coexisted at the same time. And I have made my voice of courage intentionally more powerful by feeding it the reasons why I should exercise courage and not give into fear. I not only have a TEDx talk about that, but I take the reader by detail, step by step, on how to overcome your fear. Because I have learned, not just myself, but so many other women, we have all these fears, whether it's fear of speaking up, or fear of being judged, or fear of failure. We have all these fears. And it's okay to have those feelings, but I'm teaching them how you can really amplify your voice of courage and take a chance on yourself.
Yes. I think that should be a hashtag. Take a chance on yourself. There's so many. So in the time that we have left, can you tell us exactly what the 8 intentional strategies are?
Okay, so this will take a long time if I
Okay,
go
well, you
into
don't need
detail.
to walk us through them,
But
but
yeah,
because I know you don't want to be here all day with
yeah,
us, but
yeah.
maybe, or you can maybe even just talk about the first couple.
Yeah. So the first one is obviously deciding what success means to you. And you talked about the word decide. The first thing is you must define what success means to you personally. not what the society defines it, not what's expected you, but what you would consider to be success. What I encourage women to do is to aim high, because we have a tendency to underestimate our capabilities. And so it's critical that we aim high. And like someone says, you shoot for the stars, you land on the moon, you're still doing okay. So you define success. And then really the rest of the chapters are taking you through how to achieve your success, starting from how to be intentional with your attention, how to intentionally create value at every opportunity, and then intentional growth. Because the idea is for us to continue to create value at higher levels. And the only way you can do that is if you intentionally grow your competence, you grow yourself and your confidence. Everything is about experiencing growth. And the way, and I teach the reader how you can experience growth intentionally every single day. And the other ones, which I find a lot of women get surprised by or have not given enough attention to, is intentional relationships. Because there comes a point in your career where who knows you plays a very, very big role in whether you get continually promoted or not. The higher up you go, the more important it becomes to have a sponsor, someone sitting around the table. And these are relationships that you have to build intentionally. The other one is intentional personal leadership branding. What people say about you when you're not in the room determines your career trajectory. And I learned that once I became a leader, how much what we talked about the individual, how much impact that had on whether they got the stock options, whether they got the plum assignments, whether they got the promotions, what percent of salary increase. All these decisions are made about you in a room where you are not present. And so I'm teaching women how to leave behind impressions that create a personal leadership brand, the way you want to be talked about in a room. This is not pretending to be someone else. This is about becoming that person.
Yeah, it's about maybe becoming your authentic highest version of yourself and letting people be known about it. And I think that, and it might be something that you mentioned in the book, but I've seen over and over, and it seems like it's really a myth that women think, well, if I put my head down and work really hard, then that hard work will speak for itself. And it seems like, at least what I've seen and working with my clients, is that men are a little bit better at this than we are. They're good about saying what I want to do, what I'm good at, what my team's been doing, and they're good. And it just, our voices, our hard work in a sense speaks for itself, but not enough. So I think that intentionality is so important.
Yeah. In fact, I think if you just put your nose to the grind and keep working hard, you will shortchange your success.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why, Cheryl, over 50% of the people entering the workforce are women. We get degrees from better ranked universities. Not me. I have a bachelor's degree from a small university, but in general, women have more advanced degrees. They get better grades in college. And yet, when they enter the workforce, they keep doing what they did in college to get the A's and the better grades. At the very first promotion level, more men are promoted than women. And then this problem gets compounded at each level. And the higher up you go, the fewer women you see. So we need to understand, and this is why I have written this book. I want to show women what really matters. I am teaching women what I learned over 30 years. And as I became an executive, as I started sitting in rooms where executive appointments were being made, I learned what truly matters. In fact, if you're going to be working hard and overwhelmed at your current level of responsibilities, nobody is going to give you higher level of responsibility.
Yeah, and I think that might seem like a harsh reality, but I think really appreciate your honesty there. And for anyone listening, if you would like this blueprint of the success that Shelmina Abji has seen over the last 30 years, her book is chocked full of that wisdom. And not only is it full of the wisdom, but it is a roadmap and a step-by-step plan that will help you get to where you want to go and get to where you want and deserve Shelmina, thank you so much for your time. I know it's incredibly busy for you. I hope our paths cross again for a third time or more, and good luck in your upcoming travels.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me, Cheryl.
Yeah, and I also want to mention too that this book, Show Your Worth, is available at anywhere where you can buy your books, either physically buy them or buy them online.